Tashara Parker Show. The internet's favorite cousin. A different perspective on news, culture, and hot topics. The Tashara Parker Show.
What is up? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, what time is it? 10:02. I told y'all we gonna try to get our show started on time around here. Okay, it's always about making sure we are timely and we are respectful of your time as well. Happy Wednesday to you. Yesterday was crazy, huh? Look, it was crazy to me too. We had a lot going on yesterday, and I'm so excited that so many of you stuck with us through almost 3 hours of coverage. It was officially, I think, like two hours and 45 minutes, something along those lines. But again, thank you so much for being a part of the show, for amplifying the show. We got several members to join our channel. That is how you truly show your support for the Tashara Parker Show. And again, I'm so grateful and so thankful that so many of you have tapped into this independent media space and what we are building over here on the Tashara Parker Show channel. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, hi, good morning. Thank you for tapping in. Let me know where you're watching from. I see so many of you are starting to get on. Okay. Yes. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Yes. My producer's in the comments chatting it up with y'all. So make sure you tap in and say hello. We got a couple of folks that are going to be joining us for two separate conversations. One of those conversations is going to take us up to Denton County. And then the other conversation is going to take us to my hometown over in Houston, Texas. Okay. Many of you know I am located in Dallas, and the goal of this show has always been to obviously cover things in and around Texas, but there'll be a lot of news that'll come on this show. The reason that we've been so politics heavy for the last, couple of weeks that we've been on is because we're going to meet the moment. We're going to always meet the moment. Miss Allie Jones, good morning to you. Let me tell y'all something I found out that I was so happy to hear. One of my cousins, now I'm not going to say that he's like always tapped into the news, but he's very well aware. And I didn't push this like to my family or anything like that. You guys know I didn't even post a whole lot about it over on social media. But one of my cousins texted me and he was like, hey, cuz, you know, that's my name over on YouTube. And I'm tapping into your show daily from Houston. I was like, oh, that just warms my heart. And it makes me so happy. He does it while he's at work. So I ain't going to say his name, but he knows his name. I said, that's fine. It's like a radio. You can have it on in the background. Okay. So we're going to get started because, again, we want to be respectful of our guests and respectful of their time. Our first story, as I mentioned to you, it's going to take us up to one of the fastest growing suburban counties in America, and that is Denton County, Texas. That is northwest of Dallas, for those of you who are unfamiliar. Now, this was once a reliable Republican stronghold. Denton County has become increasingly, though, competitive in recent elections, and one local race could signal even more change. Michelle Butler is running for Justice of the Peace in Precinct 6. Now, she could become the first Black woman elected to that seat. And her journey, you guys, from Zimbabwe to North Texas, from living undocumented to appearing on the ballot, reflects the evolving face of suburban politics. Michelle, good morning to you. And I just want to say welcome to the Tashara Parker Show.
2 days in a row. Good morning, sis.
We're so happy to have you. And I know we got a lot to get to here today. And I want to make sure that we are able to really maximize our time together. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about is you've described your journey as from undocumented to documented on the ballot. How did that chapter of your life shape the way that you see the justice system today?
Yes, that is one of the main reasons why I entered into political organizing, was sort of kind of to be my own advocate. I was one of the kids that was like a dreamer, and my parents moved here, you know, seeking a better future for us. We were fleeing an authoritarian regime where we were coming from Zimbabwe. And so we ended up here, and largely for a long time in my life, I didn't know that I was during my childhood that I was undocumented. I went to school just like everyone else. And then eventually, after graduating high school, top 3 of my class and trying to go to college is when I realized, wow, I don't have any options because I'm undocumented. And there was all of this potential of the type of person that I could be in our society. And yet I wasn't given the opportunity. And so that journey shaped a lot of who I am, because one, living in the shadows means you go out of your way to avoid the justice system at all costs. And then having to navigate it from being undocumented to sort of trying to find a pathway to citizenship means a lot of paperwork, a lot of processes, and it was a very complicated process. And so it shaped the way that I look at these systems and how people end up in the legal system trying to navigate and how difficult it is if you're one without any means or poor. And I really wanted to make those systems more accessible and less intimidating for people.
And so I want to jump in from there for viewers who may not fully understand what exactly does a justice of the peace do? Break that down for us.
Yes. So the justice of the peace role deals with the very first entrance into the justice system. They deal with things like landlord and tenant disputes, which are evictions. They deal with Class C misdemeanors. We don't send anybody to jail, but we do set bail. And we also deal with truancy. We deal with marriages in the court. And we also deal with small claims that are under $20,000.
Why should someone in Carrollton, Louisville, the colony, care deeply about this race?
Yeah, you should definitely care deeply about this race because the person that sits on this bench has a lot of jurisdiction in how we deal with cases. And sis, I'm not gonna lie to you, we are going through tough times. Most of us here in Denton County, we are middle-class families, and most times people are almost maybe a paycheck or a couple of savings away from ending up in JP court. And this pertains to whether you're a renter or you have a mortgage. If you're a renter, you probably end up in JP court if you can't make your rent. And if you have a mortgage and you miss 3 months on your mortgage and your company can't give you a modification and they want to send you to short sale or foreclose on your home, you end up in JP court. And so the imbalance happens in the sense that most of the people who come into our courts in the JP courts are what we call pro se, which is self-representing. And this makes a lot of sense because if you can't pay your credit card, you can't pay your mortgage, and you can't pay your rent, you probably can't afford an attorney. And it is the inverse on the other side because they probably can afford attorneys. So what happens then is that there is an imbalance on how people are able to be represented and the fair shot that they get to sort of mediating these issues. So I tell people that this is not like an issue that is far away from them. This is something that touches their daily lives. And even if you don't live in Denton County, you might get a traffic ticket in Denton County or anything can happen.
Well, don't say that because a lot of us drive through Denton County.
We need to be careful when you're driving through here, okay? But so these courts are very important as it pertains to how people see justice because it is almost always the first touch that people have with the justice system.
I want to ask you this, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. So, if you can briefly respond to this one. You said most people won't see a, quote, big courtroom, but they will experience JP court. How can a small moment in JP court turn into something that's life-altering?
Oh, yes. And I love when people ask this question.
Yeah.
And it ties back to why I'm running for this seat, because what I want to do is reduce people escalating further into the justice system. So, for example, if you come in and you have an eviction, our goal is to try to mediate to keep you in your home so you're not further propelled, one, into the justice system, but two, into homelessness, right? Mm-hmm. And also to reduce the amount of evictions that happen in the court. When you get evicted, you end up having what we call bad rental history. And that bad rental history sits with you for 7 years and keeps you in a cycle where you end up having to have a difficult time finding a place to live. A lot of people who've gone to go rent, you need to make 3 times the rent, and they do the background check and the check to make sure you don't have any evictions. Those evictions that they're looking for are those cases that happen in JP court. Same thing with things like credit cards. I tell people all the time, we all have made bad financial decisions. I know I have at one point in time. My first credit card had something outrageous, like a 30% APR. I was just so happy.
Talk to the people.
I was like, oh, I got a credit card. But what I didn't realize was that eventually I was tied into a system that made sure that I wasn't going to be able to pay that credit card off. And that debt goes to JP court where the creditor sues you. And so one of the things that we want to do in order to allow young people to thrive, because this affects young people, is to mediate those debts so that maybe people can get on a payment plan and essentially not end up having 7 years of credit markers on their credit. And
I just want to jump in because I love that you mentioned that, because as someone who attended a pretty large university in the state of Texas, on our campus, I'll never forget, and this affected me for a long time. I'll never forget on our campus, all the credit card companies, I won't say, oh, there's this one. And if you know that one, there's this one credit card company that is on a lot of campuses. And without me saying the name, a lot of people will guess which credit card company it is. They show up on these college campuses and they give you these credit cards. You don't know what to do with them most of the times. And so oftentimes you're, reaching your limit, et cetera. And you do have to deal with that. Now, I never had to go to court for it, but it took me a long time to pay that stuff off because of how high the interest rates were at the time. I want to jump into my next question. You spent many years organizing for families, housing, wages, et cetera. How did you decide that the courtroom not organizing was your next lane, and why was that?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about this on our show yesterday. I'm glad I get to expound upon it. For a large portion of the last 17 years, I was doing movement building and working to advance policies that work for working families. But this started happening for me when I was the state director at Run for Something. I was responsible for recruiting, training, and running progressive candidates across our state. And one of the things I started noticing while doing this work is that people always go for the sexy races, right? They want to run for Congress, they want to run for state house, but very rarely do people think about, running for the JP courts or running for the courts. And that's when I started looking at places like Nueces County, where they started dissolving some JP seats and essentially moving those people in the district and merging them with other JP districts and further exploding the dockets. And not only that, Republicans have done an excellent and impeccable job of filling these seats in places where people don't run. We've got 254 counties, and we've got some places where JPs are simply appointed because Democrats won't run or progressive candidates won't run. And so I'm looking at my own seat where the Republican here won by 356 votes, and looking at the dynamics of the district and the values of the district. And I was looking at the court and seeing that the judge does not exemplify the values of the district. And I was like, this is going to be the first court that I'm going to run for, to give the people of my community representation. And not only that, the ask came from people in my community. I have a dental hygienist who I go to, who is a very hardworking woman, but on a separate portion of her life, she's also the main caregiver for her mom. So when her mom was sick and in the hospital, she missed a couple of hours to make the paycheck for her rent. And she ended up in this court. And I remember talking to her, and I was like, nobody should know a judge this intimately. And she was like, yeah, I know her, because when I stood in front of her, I had already lost before I even walked in, and it was almost as if she didn't even see me as a person. And those stories are gut-wrenching to me, because these are the people who end up in this courts. And if you have judges like the incumbent who take money attuned to $50,000 from developers who are evicting people in this court, you have a conflict of interest as it pertains to how you're going to serve people equitably.
Is that something that's publicly reported that you just mentioned?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. How can a justice of the peace actually connect people to resources without overstepping those judicial boundaries?
Yes. So this is one of the things that I hope to do in my court. We have resources, places like MetroCrest that help people, and it's about building relationships and making sure that people are connected to resources for paying things like rent and utilities. But more so, outside of that, because we deal with pro se litigants, I think the main thing is connecting people to legal aid. And this is what I've done in a large portion of my life, is that I've connected people to legal aid, especially people who want to naturalize for citizenship. I don't know if most people are familiar with how difficult it is to naturalize and become a citizen. I'll often tell people that it's not that people don't want to. The pathway is rigid.
Absolutely.
And not only that, it is expensive.
And it's getting worse.
It is getting worse, and it is to thousands and thousands of dollars. And so when you connect people to legal aid, they better understand their rights, and they have representatives who are able to give them like sort of like the layout of what it is that they're facing as it pertains to that case. So I think as a sitting judge and a person who is going to be on this bench, it is going to be really important to be able to sort of guide people through legal resources so they have an understanding of what cases are sitting in front of them, because the court can be very intimidating.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why default judgments happen in court is, one, people are being asked to come to court between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So that means you have to miss out on a check to end up in court. And these are working people. And we want to reduce those default judgments. We want people to come to court, and we want this court to be less intimidating, because showing up is half the battle.
I'm trying to tell you, because you walk in sometimes and you looking at the judge looking at you, you like, oh Lord, what I done walked into. I want to ask you this. You're running right now against Sophia Anwar in the primary, and both of you have some significant endorsements. For voters trying to decide between two qualified candidates, what's the clearest contrast between the both of you?
Yeah, so the clearest contrast that I like to tell people is that I have lived in this district for 22 years. These are people whose families have grown alongside mine. These are my neighbors. I know the needs of this district. I cut my teeth organizing in it, and eventually went to go organize across the country to go advance those policies that affect families in my district, to go work for people like Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and to be in movement spaces where I'm advancing candidates who are coming out of this district to run to turn our district blue. But not only that, I have been able to be a strong fundraising candidate, one that can go toe to toe with the incumbent. And also,
hold on, I want to ask you about that, specifically about the incumbent. Okay, you could face Blanca Oliver in the general election. What is your path to victory in that situation?
I love that you asked me this question. So our path to victory is that, one, this campaign is being run by professionals, and we're all sort of people who do campaigns for a living. And that is the advantage that we have, is that we are people who run school board campaigns, people who run presidential campaigns across the country. And that is something that we have, is sort of that organizing arm. And not only that, we have a lot of fundraising power, and we're running a very, strong progressive race. We're not doing any sort of like milquetoast campaigning. We're going to be strong in our values. And I think that's going to be attractive to voters.
Hold on real quick. For folks who may not be familiar, by the way, let me give a shout out to the folks in the comments. I think it says I can't read what all that quote says, the attached something. She has the right attitude and the proper research, because there are appointed justice only because there was no opponent. But JPs also have all the state's rights of civil and criminal judges. NI aunties, but it is a complex process to report or expose corrupt JPs. Thank y'all so much for weighing in. Kim, I see your comments as well. Continue to weigh in, comment, let us know if you have a question for Michelle. That's what I really want to see. I would love to have her answering some of your questions. Of course, I've prepared my own, but we'd love to have some of your questions answered as well. Another comment that we have here, so many people are tied to the madnesses that people don't understand what is going on. Yeah, it's a lot going on. And I appreciate you guys tapping into conversations like this to ensure that we can continue to have those conversations openly. What is this? Jason says, at Texas Tech and while I was at Ohio State, credit card companies set up tables and set up tables on the yard and became predators. Yeah, I am telling you, these credit card companies were certainly at the university I attended in Texas. I'll just leave it alone. You mentioned already, Michelle, you've worked on some national campaigns, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and served as Texas State Director for Run for Something, which you talked about yesterday and today. How does running campaigns prepare you to run a courtroom? And I heard you mention milquetoast campaign. We ain't doing that over here. For folks who may not be familiar with that terminology, what does that mean?
Okay, so I'll start off with the milquetoast thing. We're not doing middle of the line, boring paper, name on a ballot, hot body on a ballot. We are going to go out there and we're going to fight. And that's what it takes. I think people are looking for people who are going to fight for them. They don't want people who use sort of like these seeds as political springboards for their own personal careers. I tell people all the time, is that like, my day job pays me more than this job would do. So this is not about any sort of like monetary reward or any sort of like accolades that I'm seeking. I really, truly do believe that we have to start holding the line on these benches and that we cannot simply let Republicans come in and snatch up all of these seats. Secondly, you asked me a very important question about transferable skills of the work that I've done in the past and how that's transferable to
Yeah.
this. One of the things that we do on campaigns is we manage budgets. I was responsible for managing about 15 to 20 House races when I was at Emily's List, under their independent expenditure arm, which is the super PAC side. And this was at a time where everybody got redistricted and we were trying to keep all of our pro-choice women in the House. That meant I had $1 million budget. Not only did I have $1 million budget, I had to figure out how to allocate all of those funds and how to properly use that money to disperse it amongst candidates to make sure that they're met in the moment where we're able to use these funds to get them elected. So if that meant that we were going to run mail or ads in those districts, it was about the discernment of where efforts go in order for our people to get elected. But more importantly, when you're talking about running a courtroom, right, it's not about just the docket or the cases on the docket. You're talking courtroom staff. You're talking training for staff. You're talking how people, sort of like navigate the court, customer service in the court. And so those skills, I think, are transferable for me because I know how to run a docket, to clear a docket, to make sure that people are coming into the court and the staff is trained. It's not intimidating. We have the best resources, and people really do truly feel like the court is sort of a community court.
So, Michelle, I do want to ask you this because I don't want to run out of time. I want to make sure I get this question in. If somebody is watching, and I've heard a lot about folks that are voting at the top, the ballot is long. Okay, I voted yesterday. The ballot is long. Okay, across a lot of parts of Texas. Okay, you get all the way down. You got your proposition. You think you're done, then the propositions pop up. It's a lot going on. So, for someone who is, a lot of people are worried about one big race. We know what race that is. I need those big races to encourage you to vote all the way down the ballot. So if someone is watching, has never voted in a justice of the peace race before, why should they start now?
Okay. I want to tie this into what I'm going to say private 810 said.
Yeah.
There was just something very important. They said JP's has also the state's rights of civil and criminal judges.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you something that is a very dark fact. Okay. These courts were instituted sort of to mediate issues, but JP courts always either are responsible for giving justice or ushering in injustice. So during the civil rights era, JP courts, were the courts that were responsible, for arresting people for interracial marriage. These were the courts that were responsible for arresting civil rights leaders and putting them into court. Any sort of like poll tax things, this was JP court. But more importantly, what people do not know is that in certain jurisdictions where counties that do not have medical examiners, JPs act as coroners. And that has a very dark history because during the Jim Crow South, those courts were the same courts that were able to basically say that lynchings were not lynching. So you would take that and have a judge who was part of the Jim Crow era and basically say that lynching was an accidental death or an accidental hanging. So what I want to warn people is that the time that we're living in right now, we're not that very far from having people on the bench that are going to use the law not in the favor of the citizens. This pertains to your daily rights and how justice is rendered by whom the person is on that bench. That person has to exemplify good values, and we have to not go back into the Jim Crow South where people are trying to take us back. This court matters because we are the first instance of justice that people get. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about your freedoms. And I want you to think about people who have fought for you to be able to step into these courts and speak for yourself and be seen as a human being and given the justice that you deserve. So I implore you, as you're voting at the top of the ticket, to think about issues that hit you most at home. Yes, the Senate race is great. Yes, the congressional races are great, but you live here at home. I want you to vote down ballot. I want you to vote for people who are going to make the laws that immediately touch you and also render judgments for things like evictions and truancy and small claims. So these races are very important. Please vote down ballot. Go and do your research your candidates, and fill out your ballot before you go in. You can go and
Yep.
look at your county elections
We
department.
were telling folks yesterday to make sure that they go in and get a sample ballot, or they can print it at home, or just, you can even write it down. Honestly, if you wanted to, you don't have a printer. Folks may not have access to printers anymore. I feel like that's ancient now, even though I got my printer right back here on my desk.
Yeah.
But, folks may not have printers, but just write it down and take that with you. You can take paper inside of the ballot booth. In one sentence, Michelle, one sentence now. I know you've been on these campaigns a long time. One sentence.
Hard.
Wrap this up. What kind of court are you building?
I am building a court that is accessible for working families. I do not want to punish people for being poor. I want people to be seen. I want to treat people with dignity. And more importantly, this is a court that stops the cycle of poverty. We want families to thrive.
Michelle, you have educated our audience, and I feel like I have a lot of very educated folks that follow this page and follow the work that we do. And for the most part, they're tapped in. I just appreciate all the insight that you brought in, not only today, but even yesterday when you stopped in briefly when we had so many of the candidates on. So again, thank you, Michelle. Good luck to you. Hopefully you make some history up in Denton County. Appreciate you stepping in on the Tashara Parker Show channel. Have a great rest of your day.
Same to you. Thank you for this platform.
Yes, of course. Of course. Okay, folks, I told you we had a lot to talk about today, and I'm so happy that we were able to get Michelle back on the show here. You guys know we cover news and politics all across Texas. This is not a political show. I always try to remind y'all of that. It is not a political show, but again, we know how to meet the moment, and I think right now this moment calls for ensuring that we are talking about the things that are happening. And I love how eloquently Michelle delivered the information about knowing the process and knowing why you should continue to vote down ballot. For those of you who did vote yesterday, I know some of you were shocked when you were put in separate lines. I would love to hear from you. Let me know how voting went for you yesterday. If you did go ahead and get your early vote on, we've been trying to tell you, make sure you vote early, because on election day, okay, you're going to have to vote in your precinct. That is something that a lot of you may not be familiar with, especially if you're in parts of Dallas County. So just keep that in mind. All right. So while we've been talking about local courts and the power of community level leadership, there's another issue that consistently shapes politics in Texas, and that is voter turnout. Texas has some of the lowest voter participation rates in the country. Between primaries, runoffs, special elections, and long ballots, many voters say the system, well, it feels overwhelming, and I get it. Add in redistricting and frequent vacancies, and fatigue becomes real. In Houston and Harris County, Texas's 18th Congressional District has experienced exactly that. Special elections, runoffs, overlapping campaigns, and historically low turnout in key races. One of the former candidates in that race, Amanda Edwards, recently announced she is suspending her campaign and instead relaunching her Do Something Houston civic engagement initiative. Now, this initiative focused on voter registration and reconnecting people to the process. So she is joining us now, the former Houston City Council member, Amanda Edwards. I'm going to get her pulled up here in just a second. And I know she's been patiently waiting behind the scenes to join us for this conversation. Amanda, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for extending the opportunity to be on this platform today.
Yeah, and welcome to the Tashara Parker Show. I am a Houston gal. So before I get into anything, what is one song that when you walk in a room, it says, this is Houston?
Oh, so many. I mean, I have to say, I am of the Beyonce era, right? Destiny's Child and all those things were happening when I was growing up in Houston. So anything Destiny's Child. But in fact, a fun fact, I actually went to high school with Slim Thug. So
cut it out.
So I have a lot. Paul Wall and Slim Thug are also part of my alumni from my high school database. So we have all the Houston classics. I can name all of them. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Look, I was hoping you didn't say Mo City Dime, because that's what I was going to say when I walk in. I'm sorry. It is what it is. I love it. Okay, I love it. So we got some stuff to get to today, Amanda. Look, you suspended your campaign, but you haven't stepped away from civic life. So I want to talk about what's next for you. In your post, you announced that you're suspending that campaign. In it, you said too much is at stake to disengage from the fight for healthcare, economic stability, and our democracy. How do you translate that urgency into action outside of elected office, I should say?
Well, this stems back to 2024. If you remember, in 2024, we saw just extreme enthusiasm of people trying to mobilize, do their part to register people, knock doors, make calls, and they were trying to make history with getting Vice President Kamala Harris elected to become our first
Mhm.
Black woman to serve as president. Now, unfortunately, what we learned from that 2024 cycle is that we had a non-voting issue. Lots of people who should have been voting for her decided to stay at home. And so during that time, we recall Michelle Obama, our former First Lady Michelle Obama, saying, "You've just got to do something." And whether that is, and everybody's not meant to, do public office. Everyone's not meant to necessarily run a campaign, but what is it that you can do in your community that can engage and make a difference? And one of the things that I think we're often troubled with and challenged with as a community is that we are attached to outcomes and we say, oh, well, I'm disappointed because Kamala didn't win and all these people stayed at home. But what we cannot do is to give in to that moment of disappointment. We have to dig in even harder, become more strategic, and remember why we were knocking those doors. Remember why we were fighting in the first place, the healthcare we were fighting for, the education that we were trying to support. All of those things are not only on our major issues, but they're on the chopping block now because
Yeah.
Trump is now in office. And so whatever it is, I tell people all the time, take a moment, do your reset. I know people have to take care of their mental health, but come back and re-engage because we need you. We need you in this fight. The midterms are critical. 18th Congressional District was was ground zero to the redistricting fight. I remember driving up and down to Austin, testifying while that seat remained empty on purpose. The big, beautiful bill that got passed only passed by a margin of 1 vote. Because that seat remained empty on its initial passage. And so there is so much at stake with this election cycle, with that seat, but also with this broader election cycle. That's why President Trump initiated the mid-decade redistricting.
Yep.
And so we cannot play into his hands. Of course, if you know, the first full year has been the implementation of Project 2025. And I mean, he's just been blowing through it. And what he also anticipates is that we will be disengaged.
Yes.
And so we have got to get out of their playbook and create our own playbook. And that means getting back into a leadership position, one in which we're not on our heels anymore, but instead on our toes, leading with vision, engagement, and everybody knowing where they can plug and play. So the goal here with Do Something Houston Voter Registration Initiative is to give people an easy way to plug and play. And it doesn't mean you have to have a special public speaking expertise. You just have to be registered as, be deputized to register voters. And if you're deputized, you can come out and engage and help people get connected to the electoral process.
I want to ask you something, Amanda, and this was not on my list because, we let bygones be bygones. But you said for folks not to be just disappointed in the process, disappointed in the outcome, of what has transpired. So you mentioned folks got to take care of their mental health, but then get back into the race. I know a lot of the 92% at one point was like, look, I'm done. We did what we needed to do. But I am asking you, after the outcome of the special election in January, how are you taking care of yourself and how are you feeling in this moment now that you've officially announced that you're no longer going to be in a race?
Thank you for the question. I mean, part of, I think, would be a disservice to me. It's in me to do the work. It's in me to do the service. So me sitting on the sidelines actually would not be taking care of myself. Me finding that way and that opportunity for me to contribute, add value into such a critical moment is helping me to navigate this moment. And so it is a rewarding experience to provide people an opportunity to be empowered, whether it is through policy, whether it is through helping connect voters to the election process. And so this actually has been a very positive aspect of that. Certainly in elections and campaign life is not easy. And it's, and in particular, this particular journey has been very complicated with, the politics that were played, the delay in the special election, the delay in the runoff election, which led to abysmally low voter turnout. And so, you've just seen so much of the games being played, but why. And it's because so much is at stake. There's a reason that Trump wanted to go into Texas and silence Black and brown voters
Come
from
on.
having a voice. And there's a reason he was trying to pick up these additional seats. And he did not want to be a president who wasn't in full control. And we need him to be a president who does not have full control. So we've got to get this House. We've got to get back on our toes. One of the things that strikes me about this moment, people often look for, the charismatic leader. And it's like, this is a moment, and I also look for when we're back in power. And it's like, guys, we got to learn how to lead even when we're not in power. I played sports growing up, so we had to play offense and defense. And on defense, you're on your toes, you're being strategic, you have a vision, you trying to achieve things. And we've got to get that mentality back in this process, which is what the voter registration initiative can help with, getting this victory, but also understanding that you're not going to always be in power, and we've got to be able to lead in instances where we're not. When the civil rights movement was going on, they were not in power most of that time, but they were very clear about their purpose and mission. They all had a strategy, whether it's litigation, whether it was litigation, legislation, or advocacy and activism. There was a role that each person could play, and everybody was chipping in and doing their part. We are in a similar moment for ourselves as a community. We have to recognize that and then step into that moment and take a leadership role in doing so.
Have you and your opponent had any conversations since you dropped out of the race?
I have not had a lot of conversations concerning the race. I decided to focus my attention on staying focused on the voter registration piece.
Absolutely.
I certainly know. I know both. There's 3 candidates in the field, additional candidates, and my name still appears on the ballot as well because of the timing. We were not able to obviously remove the name because the deadline was in December. But in any event, my focus has been just getting people registered and turned out and understanding the importance and modeling the behavior, right? Which is, if you wanted to support me, don't go and sit home, go make the choice that's right for you, and but participate. And I think that it's important. People have to understand that we cannot be outcomes driven when we do this work.
Come on, when you're right now. Okay. How does Do Something Houston differ from traditional, say, voter registration drives?
Yeah, I mean, it's meeting people where they are. So we go to Frenchie's. I mean, we literally go to some of our favorite Houston eateries. So you asked me a question about songs. I'll tell you about an eatery that is definitely Houston. And that's
you gonna say Frenchie's?
So,
I love it.
Well, we go to eateries, we go to churches. We're trying to make it accessible and not have some event where people have to come to you. I grew up in an environment where I learned firsthand how important it is to meet people where they are. And when you do that, when you show up to where they are in their community on their terms, then you're going to be able to engage them more likely than not. And so that's why you show up at church. When they're leaving out of church, come on, check your voter registration, just make sure. And people will come over, they'll check, they go to the table, and then they're like, they didn't know they had this issue, or they forgot they moved, or I can just go down the list that had we just not been seated there, they might not have been able to vote. They may have had to cast a provisional ballot, and once they realize they have challenges. And for those that don't have challenges, just need to register, they have all kinds of questions, and you got to teach them. You can show them how to check their voter registration status, how to, empower them with the tools necessary. Because a lot of times people are embarrassed to ask questions about things like voter registration. They think they should know. People don't know what they should even be asking. And so you have to kind of initiate that in meeting people where they are and ask them some questions that probe them to think about things they may not know and that they need to know.
Yeah, I see folks in the comments are saying the exact same thing. They're saying you got to remember to meet people where they are, and basically thanking you for keeping them up to par on some of the voting initiatives that is happening. One of the things that I wanted to mention is, how do you reach voters who feel disillusioned after nearly a year without representation? How do you reach those folks?
And you got to go back. I mean, when this first process started, remember, we had Congresswoman. This is for those that don't have full familiarity. This is the seat that was once held by the legendary Barbara Jordan.
Yes.
Then Mickey Leland. then Craig Washington, then Sheila Jackson Lee and Sylvester Turner, powerful voices for people in community. So to go from those voices being the voices of the 18th to then having no voice, and not just with regard to this immediate election cycle. This goes back to 24. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee passed away in July of 2024. So it was a gap then. And then you had an additional gap with the governor playing games with the seat. That special election could have been called in May of 2025. May of 2025. Here we are, February of 2026. And just getting that seat filled, which is outrageous and offensive. And so for the community members here, they want their voice back. They want to have a vote. They want to have a say. This is a community that has taken great pride in, who has represented them over the years and having a voice. And so finally, we'll have that opportunity to get their voice back, because it's been, unfortunately, a political chip in a very nasty political game that we've allowed to be played with our democracy. And we've disenfranchised people for more than a year. We're talking about nearly a year and a half when you count the time from Congresswoman Jackson Lee's demise and then passing, and then of course Congressman Turner's.
Yeah, Houston had a rough year with two major figures passing away that close back to back. Yeah,
within less than a year.
Yes. I remember seeing some of the reports on the news, and I was like, I know you lying. This is a lot. How do you measure success for this initiative? Is it raw registration numbers, policy impact, turnout? How do you measure success for the work that you're doing?
It's a combination of various factors. Engagement. One of the things we like to do is not just, we like to empower people to activate in the political terrain as well. So it's not just the raw numbers of how many people did you register. That's obviously concrete data. But in addition, who are you partnering with? What groups are you bringing along? Who are you inspiring to be a part of an effort that they've never been a part of? Who are newly deputized members of this initiative? Just different things that you can do to create a civically engaged community. What we have in Texas, we have a challenge in Texas. I think what we do, we're very cyclical. We focus on elections and isolation individuals, and then we take our ball and we go home. And we don't see that same concerted energy that you saw happen in Georgia that made it ripe for Senator Warnock and Ossoff to become the senators for a state that was known to notoriously be red. But they had to keep chipping away. Leaders like Stacey Abrams having the foresight to have a very strategic initiative to register voters. And we have to be similar. This is not intended to be akin to that, but the goal here is to think outside of election outcomes in terms of your engagement. You cannot just want to elect one candidate and then you go home after that, because there's so much work to be done to be right to elect that can allow you to actually elect that candidate. So if you're not doing the other work, you're not going to get to a space and place where you can elect the candidates of your choosing because you haven't done the work. And so voter registration is a great opportunity to get people introduced to campaigns, elections, but more importantly, it's also a gateway to get people engaged in the process. I can't tell you how many times I don't end up registering a voter, but I've answered all their questions about early voting and just a variety of things that they won't ask unless someone's showing up in their space and place.
I love that you mentioned that. I literally have a text on my phone from a friend right now saying, hey, I know you're busy. Call me when you can. I have a few quick questions about voting.
Yes.
Literally just got that text message. You're like, she should be watching the show, as a matter of fact. But, yeah. I want to ask you this because I think it's important, especially with what you just laid out for us regarding what you're doing after a moment happens. How does this moment after a loss give you a different perspective on voter engagement?
What we just saw in that special election runoff was, just quite sad when it comes to how low voter turnout was. You got a district of 800,000 people, only 26,000 people voted in that election.
Yeah.
That's not representative of turnout numbers that can never be represented, representative of that district. And so you have, some very extenuating circumstances. So it wasn't just isolated. We had a governor that took the runoff instead of having it in December after the special election that took place in November, tucked it away in the following calendar year, which no one would anticipate. And you had very low voter information about that election. And you had extenuating circumstances known as the ice storm. So we had 2 days of early voting shut down, which was unprecedented. And then they brought them back with 2 additional days that used provisional ballots. And so you just kind of layer complication after complication. In our case, we have a lot of support from seniors. And they're not going to be braving those elements when the city shuts down and they tell you stay home and the streets are closed and the polls are closed. Then that's going to impede people's turnout. And I think we saw that inclement weather incident really drive down what would already have been a very low voter turnout, but turned into an abysmally low voter turnout as a result of the weather events. And there's nothing you can do, about it other than try to extend the time. And again, it was with provisional voting, though, provisional ballots. And many people in our community don't trust that. They don't like that and don't want to do that. And so you just had kind of complication after complication layered on top of each other. Sunday was shut down, for example, and that was, opportunity for your churches to get mobilized. So they do the souls to the polls. Yes, and they couldn't do it because, no polling locations were open. So they did what they felt was safe and right, but unfortunately, it did result in some very, very low voter turnout. So we know that is, in fact, kind of, what happened. But unfortunately, what we know is that we can rewrite that story and on a going forward basis, increase that turnout. Hopefully, we'll not have a situation where the governor gets to pick the dates of an election. Hopefully going forward, we have regular elections like everybody else on anticipated uniform election dates. But right now, with the law being what it was, which allowed the governor full discretion, we were put in a really bad circumstance, and the district, did not turn out as a result.
Yeah.
We had a big crowded field going in, and you could see the difference.
Yeah.
Going in, we had 80,000 voters, and there were, I guess, 16 candidates at the time. And my opponent and I we were 3 points apart, very tight margin, lots of engagement. It still wasn't high, but to go from 80,000 to 26,000 obviously is severely problematic.
Absolutely. And let's not forget, you said 800,000 people are registered to vote?
Oh, no, those are constituents. Yeah, just residents.
Constituents, pardon me. Thank you.
About half of that are registered.
Thank you. How did you, Amanda, because we know optics can be everything. How did you come to that decision to suspend the campaign while weighing the optics of remaining on the ballot versus stepping aside publicly?
That's always a difficult decision. I mean, that was a difficult decision. But, you talk to your supporters and you gauge how they feel. Obviously, everybody's going to want you to keep moving forward. And so it is a challenging decision to make. I think we, are in this moment now where it was just a really complicated set of dates in terms of not being able to do that in a clean fashion where you literally get to, just simply remove your name. And so when you have, a complicated set of circumstances, it does require you to engage people. And so we did that, talk to people, supporters. And I think my supporter base, they've been with me for over 10 years, 11 years, since my early city council days. And, they're super supportive of whatever decisions that are reached. They know that they're going to be thoughtful. They're going to always put the community first. And that was the objective, was to put the community first in this process. And so, yes, there are going to be people who don't agree. So you're going to get that. But if they know what you're guided by in terms of the decision-making process, there is a certain level of trust you're extended in making a decision like that.
I will say I have some of your supporters from back home who knew that I was interviewing you today, and they've been with you for a while, and some of the things they were saying, I remember she used to go off on them folks in city council. So right. So I just want to ask you, and you just said really a mouthful in the best way. How do you personally define your leadership so that those who have been with you over the years, but those who are coming to know who you are now, what does leadership mean to you, and how do you define that for yourself?
You know, true leadership is not bound by a title or a position. True leadership is about the ability to inspire others and to lead. And so whether that is in a moment like this, where there was an opportunity to vote for me, but now have shifted into an opportunity to empower our community by getting people turned out. You don't get to, like I said, this is not a spectator sport. And if you're serious about the things that you say you're serious about,
right,
and if you are mission driven in the way that I am and the way that my supporters are, then we know we show up. We do the work, we show up, we put the people over the politics each and every single time. And a lot of people, have been frustrated by the political games they have seen played in concert with this race and with this seat and all kinds of things. But I said, listen, guys, I have to lead by example. And so if I'm saying, I'm gonna take my ball and go home, and that's not leadership. Leadership is making the hard decisions. Leadership is doing the right thing even if no one is watching. Leadership is always putting people and impact over the politics. And that's the kind of leadership that I'm very proud of. And that's why I have such a loyal group of people who have always been with me and understand that it doesn't matter who it is, that I will always be their voice and have their back. And whether that's establishment Democratic politics, whether that's the Republicans, whatever it is, they know that I will put the people over politics and always be accountable directly to them. And that's something that I know is a space and place where that trust has been built over time. And so I'm not going to just say, well, forget you guys. We have different things we continue to do. When I left city council, I remember, I'll tell you a funny story. One of the things I was really proud to do, I used to host this annual senior citizens conference. Lots of people would come. They loved it. They would be line dancing and eating barbecue and going to classes, their Wills and Estates class. So we had instruction and then we had fun, and they just loved it. So anyway, long story short, and it was completely free for everybody to attend. So I was in the post office one day. I just left office, and I'll never forget, there was a sweet senior that came to me and she said, "Baby, we miss you at City Hall." And then she leaned over, she said, "But when you gonna bring that conference back?"
She was like, "I'm gonna tell you this, but what I really want to tell you
is, need to know is, when is that coming back?" And so I said to her, I said, "Yes, ma'am, we're gonna figure this out." So we just continue. I've had the same phone number for decades at this point now, and so we just continue to get the calls, continue to get the work. People didn't care I was in city council or not. They're going to keep asking me for help. We rebuilt homes, and I started a nonprofit to do my work, because we were just getting the same demand. Because again, true leadership, you'll figure it out whether you're in. It's certainly a lot easier when you have an elected office to get those types of things done. But we created a C3 organization and carried out a lot of the work that we otherwise would have just done as this in my city council role. And so people see, they watch what you do, how you move when you're in office, not in office, and who they can trust. And so I take it as a great honor that people trust me in this way. They know that I will always stand for them, and I will figure out a way to help support them. And so
that leads me to my next question too, Amanda. How do you want Houston voters to remember this chapter of your career?
Well, that sounds so final.
I mean, just this chapter. Now, a book is made up of several chapters.
Yeah, this has been, I don't know, we didn't get into all the details, but this has been a wild ride. So I have not told the story yet, but it's been a wild ride. But I think that has involved somebody who has had the courage, one of perseverance, one that has never in 1 second, ever questioned or wavered when it came to putting the people first above the politics. And sometimes you can do what's politically expedient, and sometimes you can do what's right. And what I think people realize is that I've been battle tested, but I think in an extreme way now. And I think people know my heart, they know my work, they know we're about results. And they know that oftentimes politics can stand in the way of those outcomes. And that's what we've seen happen. And so they've seen it, it's been tested, and my perseverance and my ability to be steadfast, I think, has been proven.
Now, Amanda, you done gave us some snacks, but then I know the entree's still over here because you sat up there and said, I ain't told the story yet. So you just gonna give us this little piece and not give us anything we can?
Oh, well, we have to
take
do a whole nother segment. We're gonna have to do a whole nother segment.
Well, I come to Houston fairly often, so if we need to sit down, it ain't nothing to it. But
Okay,
to do it.
let's do it.
So I'm gonna wrap this up, Amanda. So I got some rapid fire questions for you. Now I kind of let you off the hook earlier. All right. So you mentioned Destiny's Child as your group that comes to mind when you think of Houston music.
Yeah.
One song that you know every single word to.
I don't know if I know every single word. Jesus Loves Me. I mean, I know what song. I'll probably like mess it up.
And that's very Houston.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know every single word. I'm sure I'll mess it up, but I would say most people know. Well, they probably don't know it anymore. I would say let me answer your first question.
Okay.
No.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, that would be fine. So
that's good. In that Destiny's Child era.
Yes.
What's the most Houston thing about you?
Besides for my laugh, my eating habits, I would say people are very surprised to see my eating habits. So I will eat, barbecue. I will have, and Houston is like a fusion of all the best foods, right? So then you got, I will eat some boudin. I will eat, whatever.
I love me some boudin, and don't let it be spicy or Cajun.
Yes. So I would say people are very surprised to see that my palate is very Houston. Not that I don't eat other things, but that I do enjoy that, and I am grown up.
I cannot. Favorite Houston restaurant since you love food?
Well, I'm gonna have to. I can't say a favorite, but I'm gonna have to put. Let's see. I don't know.
Amanda, please.
I'm gonna say one that is not as widely known but excellent. Late August, and it's on the Michelin list. Yes. So interesting story. It's in a building called the Ion, which is the centerpiece of the Innovation District that I helped to get launched when I was on City Council. So it's in a new Innovation District. And this is a Black-owned restaurant. It's the sister restaurant to Lucille's.
Yes.
And it's on the Michelin list. And so it is like a little kept secret. So I'm putting the secret out. But yes, it is really, really eclectic. It's kind of like just a fusion restaurant. It's very good. And so, but a lot of people don't know about it. So I'm putting you on. It's called Late August.
Okay, Late August when we're back in Houston. Okay.
That's right. And when Lucille's is the one that people know more about.
Oh,
Lucille's,
yeah.
But
definitely. And I didn't know they had a sister restaurant.
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know. Last question, Amanda.
Okay,
one word. Now I know y'all like to go on and on. One word. When you think about Houston's future in one word, what is it?
Bold.
I'll take that. Anything else, Amanda? I know it's a lot that we can talk about, but
I know.
Anything else that you want to mention, how people can find the work that you're doing with your initiative and get involved in it? I know we said a little bit off the top, but anything else you want to leave folks with so they have their CTA, their call to action after this?
Absolutely. You can follow me on my social media channels. AK Edwards TX is my X and my Blue Sky account. I also have Amanda K Edwards TX is on Instagram, Facebook, and then of course TikTok. And people can follow me there. Just know that You can see my link to sign up for our Do Something Houston voter registration initiative. And again, we get you deputized. After you get deputized, then we start getting you places where you can go. I mean, it's very fun. People enjoy it. It's, we're at, drive-through lines. I mean, we're having fun. We're having a good time. We're at church, so you can get some religion in. You can do all of the things. You can eat, you can get some religion, all of the things. So we're
and
doing
get educated, okay?
There you go. And then educate the voters. And so you're doing all the good works. So, but in all seriousness, it's a great opportunity to get involved. And again, I just want to say this again. We know that a lot of stuff is personal, but there's too much at stake to sit out because of personal reasons. So please, I know we have learned the lesson of what happens when millions of people stay at home when they shouldn't. And so let us not learn any new lessons. Let us continue to have, outstanding turnout. The first day of turnout for the midterms here in Texas was excellent. Let's keep up the great work and keep encouraging people to show up. It's too much. Right now, you've got people getting shot from, ICE. I mean, just crazy things that are happening in our community that have to stop. And we have to begin to hold the president accountable, and can't do that if we don't have the House of Representatives, the power back in the House. So we've got to start holding those hearings and really holding to account. Our system only works when we have 3 functional branches of government that have checks and balances to them. And right now, this is your opportunity to restore those checks and balances back in our country.
Okay. Amanda Edwards, thank you so much for making time, and thank you to your team for following up with us via email. They helped me make today happen, and my producer. So I appreciate you making time for us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right.
Until
talk later. Okay. Yes. Until next time. I ain't going to forget it. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All righty, folks. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to today's show. I got to give you a quick reminder. Now, something I want to go back to because I didn't get a chance to recognize it during the show because I wanted to be respectful of our guests and their time. Mrs. Queen Sunkiss. Okay, donating to the show. That is what I'm talking about. Oftentimes when you want your questions to be answered or you want to get my attention, you can do things like this. This is over on the YouTubes, okay? Mrs. Queen Sunkiss. I believe you've done this before, but thank you so much. Says Tashara got the interview game on lock. Thank you for keeping an eye on Texas. I am and will. Thank you so much, Mrs. Queen Sunkiss. And thank you for tuning in over on YouTube. Oh, my friend JP is on here. Hey, friend. Let's ensure we encourage all of our families and friends to vote. Absolutely. Nakia saying, woohoo, yes, let's make sure we get in and vote. Call to action. Yes, she gave you your marching orders. Definitely make sure that you guys listen to what she mentioned there. Even if you're not in Houston, baby, you can do this work anywhere. Christopher was asking, where's that restaurant located? She's definitely out of Houston. But you know what? I got Google right here, and I don't mind searching for you because, babes, when you're on my YouTube, you're helping us out, okay? So Late August is located, she mentioned the Ion. Looks like it's downtown, 4201 Main Street in Houston. Oh, that food look good. Oh, that food look good. We're going to have to test that out, okay? So again, folks, thank you so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to like and subscribe on our page if you have not done that already. Hit the thumbs up button. Even now, you can hit the thumbs up button. It all matters. It all helps other folks find us here on the Tashara Parker Show channel. I know we're just getting started. We're only on week 3 of this whole entire thing. So it's crazy, like, how things have developed over this short time frame. I always like to remind people this is not a political show by any stretch. It may feel that way or seem that way by some of the guests that we've had on lately, but it is because when you are doing daily news, you meet the moment. And we've had a lot of political content that has come across the page. So make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If there are people you feel like we need to have on the show, feel free to send them our way. We would love to make sure that we connect with them. I know Maxie emailed us about someone that he thinks will be a good fit for the show. So we're working behind the scenes to get some of that taken care of. I always want to say thank you so much for supporting independent journalism. I couldn't get to as many questions as I wanted to today because, as I mentioned, I really wanted to be respectful of our guests and their time. And many of them made time to be on with us today. Don't forget again, like, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. If you haven't liked this video, what you doing? Like the video. If you haven't shared this video, what you doing? Go share it, especially if you're watching us from anywhere else other than Facebook. Make sure you share this video. Tell folks about the work that we're doing on the Tashara Parker Show channel. And what I also love about the work that we can do is oftentimes we can switch it up. We can switch it up. We can have guests on, we can do breaking news, we can do all the things. Okay, so definitely make sure you're tapped in. Let us know where you're watching from. Did y'all tell me where y'all were watching from today? Because we just jumped in and got straight to business. Okay, we got straight to the business. I don't even know where y'all watching from today. Let me know, because y'all still on here, so let me know where you are watching from today, honey. So I gotta shout out my people. Okay, Christopher, I hope I answered your question. And sounds like Miss Amanda got a lot more to tell us. Now, when we do that sit down interview, I hope that we can make it happen. Let's see here. I see some of our members on here as well. Destiny. Hey, Destiny. Thank you for always tapping in. Appreciate it. I don't know if my cousin is on here today, but Delvin, that is my cuz down in Houston. He told me he'd be watching on YouTube. So, cuz, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for supporting my work. Y'all know what's so crazy? I don't usually even like share a lot of this stuff like with my family. If they find it, they find it. That's great. But I usually don't. I just kind of go head first in and get it done and try to like make it better along the way. But I need to promote it more and I need to share it more. Because oftentimes, again, a lot of the sharing is done on social media. Hey, Tanya. Hello, hello, hello. Larissa. Hello. My family relies on me to break down everything on the ballot. Girl, I'm already knowing, honey. I'm already knowing. All right. Thank y'all so much again for tuning in. Let me know you're here. Gladewater is in the building. Memphis is in the building. I always forget there's a delay on when I say something versus when y'all respond. East Texas in the building. What's up? Quitman. Whoo, Quitman was baby. I couldn't spend too much time in Quitman, especially not at night. Not at night. How is Quitman these days? Back in the day, you weren't spending. Who is this? Oh, hold up. Wait a minute. Now, how do I pin this? Maxie has gifted 10 Tashara Parker memberships. So those memberships are available right now. He has gifted those 10 memberships to someone to join our page. That is a very, very big deal. Okay. Duncanville, Oak Cliff, also in the building. Thank y'all so much for watching. Appreciate that. Saxy, let me tell you, Lil 47099. When Maxie, we're so thankful for your support. You've been rocking with me for I don't even know how long. I'll never forget. This was a kind of funny story between Maxie and I. One time, I understood social media, but I was just doing a lot. I've been on social media many, many years. I'll never forget. I was on social media and I was like, well, shoot, I'm going to go live while I'm walking on this trail. I don't know why I did that. And it's so crazy. Me and Maxie bumped into each other and I didn't know who Maxie was, but Maxie explained like, oh, I'm one of your followers. And he was so cool. And another way that I know Maxie is I think it's his niece. His niece is also a news person. And she and I worked together at a station in Tyler, Texas. We were both anchors at a station in Tyler, Texas. So I love that folks who have been following and supporting me for a really long time are still tapped in and they see the journey and they see the work that we're doing. So Maxie, thank you for following. And not only that, for being supportive. That is so important. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Again, so appreciative for those of you. Tarrant County, I see you in the building. I love that Memphis, Tennessee is up in here. Okay. Because we might be talking about some Memphis politics in a minute. Okay. So yes, definitely keep weighing in. If you want to take advantage of those 10 memberships that Maxie purchased, you can do that over on YouTube. All right. So thank you, everyone. I hope you have an amazing day. It is 11:11. We're actually about to prepare for a recorded interview right after the show. I am just so grateful and thankful that we are making this show happen, and it's going to evolve. It's going to change. We're going to figure out what works. We're going to figure out what doesn't work, because eventually we're going to be having these panel conversations, honey. Panel conversations. Bishop E. Williams say, Quitman isn't nothing like that. Made the move from Dallas 3 years ago. Awesome people generating wealth through land is okay. Great. That wasn't my experience, but I'm happy that you feel that way. And I'm happy that maybe it's changed. I'm happy it's changed. I didn't want to be in equipment after about 7. Okay. But anyway, thank you, Bishop, for weighing in. You're living there now, so I can only take your word for it. That's it. Amani, did I miss anything? Did I miss anything? All righty, folks, that is all our time. Have a great rest of your day. Again, Mrs. Queen Sunkiss, thank you. Maxie, thank you. And for everybody weighing in, I appreciate y'all so much. Like, subscribe so that other people can be made aware of the work that we're doing. Okay, talk later. Bye. Hey cousins, thank you so much for watching. Your support is how we keep going. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. I know you hear me say it all the time, but all of that impacts the algorithm and folks finding out about the Tashara Parker Show. We want to make sure you never miss a show as well. We are live every day, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. and sometimes some special episodes. If you support the work that we're doing here, please consider becoming a member of the Tashara Parker Show. You can do all of this by visiting our YouTube page. Thanks so much for supporting the work that we're doing here. We could not do any of this without all of you. Thank you.